What is up, and welcome back to the Common Sense Core. I'm Kelvin, he's Nathan, and did y'all see the debate between Ron DeSantis and Gavin Newsom last week?
I saw it. I
Well,
saw it.
let's talk about it.
Yeah. I think let's go ahead and watch a little recap and let's go ahead and talk about it because, buddy, it did not go the way I thought it was going to go.
Absolutely not. But let's watch it. Let's pull it up here. We're gonna let it play for you guys. Let's go.
Sitting on his hands. He refuses to take care of the border. He refuses to hold the drug cartels accountable. This is the vision of Biden, Harris, Newsom.
I support border security. I think the asylum system is broken. I believe that we need.
I understand that.
I'm the only guy here that's a border state governor. You're trolling folks and trying to find migrants to play political games to try to get some news and attention so you can out Trump. And by the way, how's that going for you, Ron? You're down 41 points in your own home state. Biden administration, the last 3 years, it's been a master.
Joe Biden paying you tonight?
3.9%.
I thought this was state versus state.
No, but it's about the United States of America. I thought this guy was running for president of the United States. If
You
you're
are
running
too.
for a
You
third-
just won't
are you
admit it.
running for a third.
You
Sounds
just
like
won't
you're
admit
running
it.
for a
You will not
third.
admit it.
Is Joe Biden experiencing this cognitive decline? Is it a danger to the country? Do you find when he speaks, what is your reaction to it?
Yes, he's in decline. Yes, it's a danger to the country. He has no business running for president. And, Gavin Newsom agrees with that. He won't say that. That's why he's running his shadow campaign.
We'll take Joe Biden at 100 versus Ron DeSantis any day of the week at any age. You had
We're not
quarantines.
False.
You had quarantines. You had checkpoints
False.
all over the state of Florida. By the way, I didn't say that. Donald Trump laid you out on this. Dead to right. You did
not
that.
true.
You followed science. You followed Fauci, Ron DeSantis.
That's not false.
He followed science.
That's not
He
true.
followed.
You had more kids locked out of school for a longer period of time in California than anywhere else in the country. It was the working class kids. It was the middle income kids. His kids were in private school. They were in class in person.
Slow down. I want everyone to be
He's been in
heard.
trouble for that before.
This to breathe. I want this debate to breathe. I want it to organically develop. To do that, I need both your cooperation. I don't want to be a hall monitor. It's not my style, all right?
This is a book that's in some of the schools in California. Florida, this is not consistent with our standards, called Gender Queer. Some of it's blacked out. You would not probably be able to put this on air. This is pornography. It's cartoons. It's aimed at children, and it's wrong. So this should not be in schools.
Those books, do you believe that's appropriate for school districts to teach kids? Yes or no?
Come on, those aren't. It's not part of the curriculum. They're not teaching.
Those
kids
are
that.
Those are books that were in school.
Hold on.
Shaky.
The bottom line is you are on a book banning binge. Your state, 1,406 books, 3,362 in this country.
You didn't answer.
Florida's
What about
leading-
those
no,
books?
Florida. That's not. We don't provide for K through third grade education that kind of curriculum. It's just made up. These guys make it up. It's part of this cultural purge.
Should it
it's
be?
just
What grade would it be acceptable?
What I find
grade?
offensive, Sean and Ron, what I find offensive is a very significant number of these books happen to be LGBTQ books.
Joe Biden is in the pocket of the teachers union, and so is Kamala Harris. That's why they
And by the
fought
way,
school
it's not
openings
Kamala Harris.
when he
Shame
came
on
in
you.
there.
It's Kamala
When they had
Harris,
that in
Ron.
there.
It's Kamala
Biden came
Harris,
into office
Madam
and he
Vice
brought in the
President,
teacher
to you,
union to
Kamala
be
Harris,
able to.
and he needs it.
This is a map of San Francisco. There's a lot of plots on that. You may be asking, what is that plotting?
Ooh.
Well, this is an app where they plot the human feces that are found on the streets of San Francisco.
Wow. And honestly, y'all, for those of you that didn't see this, that's just like the highlights. There was a lot of this over the course of the debate. There's a lot of things that were said by both men. There was a lot of, there was a lot of stuff that I agreed with and didn't agree with on both sides. But what I will say is it was a fiery debate. And like Nathan here, it totally changed my opinion of what was going on. It totally changed my opinion of the race at large. It changed my opinion of both of these politicians. I won't say it changed my opinion solely or holistically, but I did come away with some very different surface level opinions of both post debate. But I'm gonna let Nathan jump in and kind of tell me what you saw there.
No, I mean, I agree, and I think surface level is right. I mean, you know, neither of us live in those states. I mean, I'm from California, but I haven't lived there in a long time, right? So besides when I go back and visit, and thankfully when I visit, my family lives in a pretty great area.
Hmm.
I haven't been to San Francisco in a while. I will say, um, one of my kids is about to go to San Francisco for a homeschooling field trip. My awesome aunt is taking him out there and everything, um, I just like on San Francisco, right? Some of the things that were being said uh, in that debate. I mean, I grew up going to San Francisco as a kid. It's an amazing spot. California in general is
Beautiful.
one of the greatest places on earth, right?
Beautiful.
And I haven't been to San Francisco myself in years, right? So I do have family that goes, and they say, they always have a great time when they go, right? But then I also see videos of San Francisco and what's going on there. And then, of course, I get an opinion from that. So it's hard for me as a Californian to form a really good opinion on what's going on, in that city specifically without so we might have to take a trip out there and see for ourselves. But
Yeah, that would be a fun episode. That would be a fun
yeah,
episode.
it would. But overall, man, just backing up a little bit, I think I going into this, I really expected Gavin Newsom to wipe the floor with DeSantis, right? I mean, when you look at just the fact that Ron DeSantis is running for president, and he kind of took the bait, so to speak, by doing a debate with another governor who's, you know, uh, not running for president. We thought he might be, and of course he might still be, but I changed my mind on that as well. So I think DeSantis took the bait for a debate that he shouldn't have done, and I thought, okay, Newsom's gonna get him. You reap what you sow. It didn't really go that way. I thought it was way more evenly matched than I thought it was going to be. And I would even maybe give it to DeSantis. I mean, there was a lot of not answering the question from Newsom, a lot of dancing around it. I mean, boy, is that guy handsome. Boy, is that guy slick. Boy, does
Yeah.
that guy have a great smile, right?
Yeah.
But, he, like, I think what some I texted you during, he looks like the villain from an 80s movie, right? Like
He
he looks
does.
like he
He
looks
does.
like that bully jock handsome high school guy that grew up with daddy's money, and now he's a grown up and he hasn't grown up. And then on the other hand, we got DeSantis with his platform shoes,
Such a
that's
stiff. He's such a stiff.
he's like
He's
he's the dork from the debate class,
yeah. Yeah.
So it's just and I will say too, I mean, we had talked about this. I really thought that Gavin Newsom was running kind of a shadow campaign, right? I figure, with Biden's health and, obvious mental decline and everything, that, okay, yeah, we have a vice president currently, but her approval ratings are not such that really she should be in the running to
Mm-mm.
be, to take that main spot. And Newsom does run one of the largest economies on the planet.
Yep.
I mean, he
Top
has
10.
experience. His aunt is Nancy Pelosi, right? I mean, so he's kind of embedded into the Democrat Party and, running one of the biggest Democrat states. Uh,
Into the ground, by the way.
Yeah, but at the same time, there are a lot of positives for California, right?
Hmm.
So I, from what I see, I think kind of the biggest issue California faces is a declining middle class. I mean, there's such a wealth disparity in that
Hmm.
state, right? I mean, like we talk San Francisco. I mean, we're pretty regular guys making, like average American money. I definitely couldn't afford to, right? I mean, I don't think I don't think you could afford.
I
We
can't. No,
live,
I can't.
so and that's happening more and more in California. I mean, just where I grew up, I couldn't afford to own a home there, not even a little bit. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it So yeah, running into the ground some ways, and then I think in other ways, hey, he cleaned up San Francisco for that visit.
Stop it.
So
Stop it.
they have, but that's kind of thing. They have the power to make that state really good, and in a lot of ways, it is still really good. I don't want to totally trash California. I still have a lot of love, but I'm probably not going to live there again.
Yeah, I would say this. I think there are pros and cons for every state that you live in. Because if you talk to a lot of liberals, they'll say that I'm crazy for living in Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Texas, like, are you kidding me? Why would you live in a place like that? I literally had somebody that I was talking to maybe a few months ago. Nice hat. And you were there for it. And they were telling me,
Yeah.
I moved to California, and how could you move to Texas? Texas is way worse than California. And I'm like, in what way, right? Like, I think that's the question. In what way are any states better than other states, right? If you're talking about taxes, if you're talking about quality of life, if you're talking about, how far your dollar can take you, Texas is much better than California. It's not even close. However, the scenery in California, the rolling
beautiful.
hills and the water, and I would say California is one of the most beautiful places in this great nation, and there's no doubt about that. There's not a lot of competition for that. I mean, Florida's beautiful. There are beautiful places all over this country, but California is California. And
California is California.
And we all know it. Everybody knows it. Every Californian knows it. Most of the people that live there because it's beautiful. I mean, they live there because it's beautiful. They have access to beaches. People are generally laid back. They got good vibes in California, among
Not
the
on
people.
the 405.
Yeah, not on the highways,
Yeah.
but typically. But I will say, I have to agree with you, Nathan. You know me, I've been very critical of Ron DeSantis during his kind of shift towards the right, shifting into trying to out Trump. I think Gavin Newsom did make a good point that Ron DeSantis went from being kind of a Trump light, where he's tough on certain things, but he's also reasonable on other things, and so on and so forth. He's gone the complete opposite direction. I've been very critical of some of his behavior in office, the way that he's running his state, but he won big. He won big in the last election, so the people of Florida obviously feel some type of way about him. And I think I'm such a believer in our process, in our political processes here in America, that if that's what Florida wants, then hey, more power to you, brother.
Yeah,
but
and that's what they get.
Yeah, and after watching a few of these debates, watching some of his performances, he's just not super likable, right? Like, I expected him to be a stiff on stage. I expected him to kind of just be a curmudgeon and get danced around by the slickest talking politician that you'll ever see, right? And that didn't happen at all. What I noticed from this debate was Gavin Newsom came in and started giving all of the emptiest platitudes in political thought, right? Like you and I were talking about it. He just started throwing shit at the wall and praying to God that the media will help it stick, right? Like every statistic that Sean Hannity brought to the table was a general statistic from somewhere like the CDC or one of the other governmental agencies. And he disregarded all of the data, right? And started finding these super like granular topics to be like, well, California outperforms you in fourth grade reading. Like,
yeah,
what? Right?
Does
he did a bunch of that, right? And I think what Ron DeSantis did really well was hit Gavin with facts, straight up facts. He was giving him facts.
He came with the receipts.
He came with the receipts. He was giving it to him all night. And, I can say unequivocally that I thought that Ron DeSantis won this debate by a good margin. I think it was a comfortable victory for him. Now, when you go on the internet, when you go on YouTube and you hear all the other people that are reacting to this debate, you're gonna find varying degrees of, oh, he destroyed him or he destroyed him. I'll tell you, you're not gonna find that here with us. We try to be as fair across the board. And I'm gonna say this again: I am not a fan of Ron DeSantis. I'm not a fan of him as a candidate.
He's not my guy.
He's not my guy. He's not gonna get my vote regardless. I'm very, in terms of the book banning, I have a real problem with that, but we can do an episode on that. Not a big fan of his behavior, but on Thursday night against Gavin Newsom, I think he hammered Gavin. I really do. I think Gavin came in and tried to be the handsome, slick talking politician. He tried to block and bridge, be like, I don't know anything about that, Sean. But what I can tell you is this man is down 41 points. Like, that's great.
Well,
cool.
Especially in the beginning. He had all that energy in the beginning, right? And he started seeing it wasn't working for him.
Started deflating his ass like a balloon. And that's all it was, right? He's full of hot air, you know. And we can talk about some of the specific topics that I think he got murdered on. I think the first thing that I could say is he got murdered on parental rights, right?
Oh, yeah.
When they brought up the parental rights thing, and he started saying that California is for the parents. And then, Ron came in and said, boy, look, what are you talking about? Listen, a kid can run away from home, make it to your state, and transition without parental consent. And then instead of saying that's not true and trying to give us some context to it, Gavin Newsom, he started playing the humanity card. Humanity. Well, they're human beings, Ron. You don't treat them as if they're human beings. Let me tell you guys something. These are minors, okay? Look, whatever you believe about transitioning, about being transgender, all of those things, irrelevant, right? I do think at the end of the day, parents should be involved in that process, okay? And for him to not even give any credence to the fact that parents need to be involved in that. And kids can run away from Texas. They can run away from Arizona. They can run away from Colorado right now and go get the medical care that they need without parental consent in his state. It's disgusting. He got destroyed on that. I'm glad that he brought that up. I'm glad that they talked about it, because that is a very dangerous policy. You and I are both parents.
Yep.
Right? We have children. I'll be damned if my son runs off to California to get the medically necessary treatment that he needs at 15, right? No. If at 18, that's what he wants to do, I will support him. I will do.
Absolutely.
But you are not able at that age to make those kind of decisions, right? If we are going to say as a society that you cannot drink alcohol until you're 21 because your brain is not fully formed, why then would we allow you to make life-altering decisions, right? And again, I think we have to be clear about what the differences are between, gender-affirming care and full-fledged transition care, right? If you want to change your name, if you want to go by a different name, if you want to be honored on certain pronouns, totally fine. That's a decision for the parents. I think the school should tell the parents, right? Like, this is happening, right? And try to foster that. But we have to draw the line somewhere. And I think when we have these conversations, that line is not drawn clear enough. Like, hey, we are not talking about 100%. Hormones. We're not talking about sex changes. We're talking about gender affirming care, right? Like we're saying we're going to affirm this child. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I think those are the nuances of the conversation that we have to have. But Gavin didn't take the time to iron that out, because I don't really know what the law is. I know of the law. He didn't. But I don't know enough about the law to say it's only for this or it's only for that. I know that, there are differing, opinions depending on the political spectrum or what side of the political spectrum that you sit on. And again, I don't think this is it's not a conversation about wanting to stop someone from doing what makes them feel happy, right? Like if you wanted to be Nathana today, okay. All right, Nathana, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like if I wanted to be Kelvina today, that's a totally different conversation than me being a 12-year-old and thinking that it's time for me to, get the big snip, if you will, and
exactly,
and
man.
Go that
if you can't, and there's that video floating around, right, of one of these people who interviews people on the streets.
Yeah.
And sidebar, those videos are funny, right? But let's always remember, for anybody watching this, right? Let's always remember, when you watch the videos of people being interviewed on the street, it's a small portion of who got interviewed that day. Don't let those videos freak you out towards humanity. Okay. So, of course they're edited to be entertaining, right? That's all those are for entertainment. But there was a funny one. It was entertaining. And this guy was asking a bunch of people, hey, should a 12-year-old kid be able to go get a tattoo? Everybody said no. And then he asked, should a 12-year-old kid be able to go get on hormone therapy and gender surgery? And they said, yes, absolutely. And I think I think there's a big thing going on right now on both sides of the aisle where we throw common sense to the side for political ideology.
Yeah.
Right. So and that line of questioning was almost perfect. Right. Tattoos are apolitical at this point in 2023. Right. Maybe back in the 50s, the Republicans didn't like them. Right. But but at this point, tattoos are apolitical. So an apolitical question: should a child be able to do this? And then it was the obvious, honest answer of course not.
Absolutely not.
And then as soon as you ask that question, which makes people snap in politically, then you have the non-honest answer. And I think a lot of people are afraid to be honest about that. And like you said, when you're an adult, go for it, man. Do your thing.
Yeah.
Be you. But when it comes to kids, and hey, I could be wrong, right? But right now, me being a dad, it's the way I feel. When we're talking about kids running off and getting hormone therapy, which, by the way, there's a lot of people that say this puberty blockers are reversible. It does permanent damage, right? It's just when you're talking about permanently altering a child, man, that's where I pump the brakes and I say, hey, I don't care about politics. I don't care one way or the other. This needs to be given a good, actual, non-biased look. And I don't think right now we're capable of that. And if we're not capable of that, then in my opinion, it's got to stop. And Ron got him absolutely right.
Yep.
That's as per my understanding of the legislature being passed in California, DeSantis was right about that.
And Gavin didn't deny it. And again, we're not going to make this episode all about the trans community and everything. I think that was a really good example of Ron bringing receipts that Gavin could not contend with. And we saw that a lot in this debate, right? I think the focus of Ron DeSantis in this debate was to bring the receipts, was to stick to facts, was to stick to policy, whereas Gavin took a lot of personal shots, called him a bully, did a lot of this other stuff. And cool. Yeah, I think Ron DeSantis is a bit of a bully. I would agree with that statement.
Yes.
But I think when you're in a debate and you're debating a red state versus a blue state and some of the most successful red versus blue states, I think it's important to talk about the nuances that make your state great as opposed to trying to bash this state, right? I feel like everything that Ron DeSantis said was true. He was like, hey, the infograph is on the screen. Like, the viewer can see it. You can say whatever you want to, but here are the statistics. If you want to dive into some super obscure, portions of the statistics, I think those are different conversations. But I think generally, Gavin Newsom was not ready to contend with the facts. And
no.
I do think that Ron DeSantis had a little bit of help from Sean Hannity. I think I felt a little, in fairness to Gavin, it felt a little rigged against him from the beginning. Like, they were both 100%. Debating him a little bit.
100%. They're on Fox News. That's one of the things that we kept texting about is like, hey, is Hannity debating or is DeSantis debating?
Yeah, but see, the hard part that I have, and I would encourage all of you to watch this debate for yourself when it does become available. We can't find it, right? I don't think that the media, the mainstream or the legacy media, wants that debate to be out there because it wasn't good.
Can't find the whole thing.
Can't find it, and that's my tinfoil hat moment, by the way. Like, don't take that too seriously, right? But I will say that Sean Hannity, it seemed that he was working in tandem with Ron DeSantis, but I bet you if you watched it back, there's a lot of empty platitudes coming out of Gavin. Gavin didn't answer any question, right? He would get asked a very direct question. Hey, what do you think about all the people leaving California? And then he would start going off on this tangent, and Sean would be like, buddy, what do you think about the people leaving California? Like, just answer the question. And he'd be like, I'm going to answer your question in long form, right? Like, he's like, I'm going to do what I want. So I think there was a little bit of both of it, like a little bit of the reason that it seemed like he was getting, ganged up on was the fact that he wasn't answering questions. He was trying to politic this thing to death. But then I also think that, obviously Sean Hannity probably is more in line to agree with and support Ron DeSantis over Gavin Newsom and kind of believe some of the statistics and the scenarios and the hypotheticals that were being put out there. So, yeah, there was a lot going on. But again, y'all, I would encourage you heavily to, watch this for yourself. If you have an opportunity, if you can find it, watch it. These kind of debates are really important because it's important to know what's going on. It's important to know what the stances are of some of the standard bearers, if you will, of the right and the left. You know what I'm saying? So please take a look at it. This is just our analysis as guys that try to stay relatively centered, right, and call balls and strikes. But you know,
I mean, we brought up Fox News again, so we're obviously Republicans, right?
you know me. I have a very real problem with the Republican Party.
Yeah.
I will say that, you know,
bunch of do nothings.
Oh, the worst. I mean, just a party of opposition to any and everything that's progressive or is going to make us progress forward. But I also have some very real issues with the Democratic Party. Honestly, I hate both of the parties. I hope that they all burn down, and that's part of the mission is to burn these parties down and divorce as many of you as possible from these parties so that we can start thinking for ourselves and start making decisions as an organized populace of American citizens, as opposed to I'm a Democrat, so I believe this, or I'm a Republican, so I believe this. You know, it's like Nathan was saying, we all want to be part of a team so badly, but I think we should switch that team from Republicans and Democrats to Team America. Like, hey, what about that team? You know what I mean?
America. Hey, I got a question for you too. So you kind of touched on it with the books, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen Democrats and Republicans both go after books or book bans. Now, I would like to bring up a good point. One, that for all the viewers, I don't actually have a growing black spot on my face. I don't know what's going on with my vertical background. But also, there is a big difference between a book that is in a student's curriculum and required reading versus a book that is available in the school library.
Yeah.
Okay. And so most of the time, from what I've been finding out, because I'm like, yeah, this is America. We can't really ban books, right? Like we can go buy whatever books we want. They're going to be available somewhere. So what does it mean when they're talking about schools banning books or these books are available at the school, right? And from what I'm finding out is mostly it's a book available in the school library. And that to me, yes, it's available for the kids, and there are books that definitely, like if that book that Ron DeSantis was showing was actually available in the school library, if it was below high school, it needs to not be in there. I mean, I think when we're talking about anything, sexual in nature, I think, it really doesn't belong in public school at all. But there is an argument to be made, especially in the high school level. And in some areas of the country, it's a little too late when you get to high school level. These kids do need sexual education. They need to know what's going on, right? So I kind of exclude high school when I talk about this because those kids are looking stuff up on the internet. They're learning, whatever. But so I'm talking really middle and elementary school. If that book was actually in there, that's not okay, right? Even whether it was in the library or curriculum. But I think the right oftentimes doesn't catch this when we're talking about these books. These are not mandatory reading curriculum books. They are on a shelf somewhere. So if your kid doesn't know to look for them, they're probably not seeing them. Not justifying any of it. I'm just saying, like, we go really overboard with the whole quote book banning thing and books that are available. And there really is the truth really is in the middle here.
I would say so. And again, let's make it very clear, y'all. The books that are being banned in states like mine, Texas, or Florida, which I think are two of the biggest banner, if you will, if that's the good word, banners of books in the country, they're not being banned from the curriculum. You have to remember that the state sets the curriculum, right? So we've had a Republican governor here in Texas, I don't know, for like 20 years or something, and his education administration is who sets the curriculum, right? So they would have no one to blame but themselves if these books were on the shelves or these books were in the curriculum. These books are in libraries. These books are on shelves in teachers' classrooms. Like these books are being banned from the shelves of places that are supposed to encourage kids to read. Now, I don't know to the extent of where these books are being found. Is it high school? Is it middle school? Is it elementary school? I would agree with you. If it's sixth grade down ish, it shouldn't probably be there.
Yeah.
Right. But I think one of the arguments I've heard is that schools don't buy individual books. They buy books in bulk. Like they buy a whole bunch of books from like a wholesaler.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and they don't always know exactly what's in the like package, right? So say they buy 1,000 books at once to fill the shelves of their library from a book wholesaler. There may be some titles in there that escaped by, that didn't get the proper vetting, and I think that's a lot of what we're seeing too. I can't see a librarian go into the sexual education section of Barnes and Nobles and grabbing a couple of copies of some books that have some soft porn in them, right? Like I don't think that's happening. I don't know if there's any like malicious intent here. However, it is what it is. I think you have to like account for it. I think these are conversations that need to be had. And I think we do need to make sure as a society that we're not banning books on the basis of anything we just don't like. Like I remember one of the books I think that was banned in Florida is The Hate U Give. You know what I mean? And that was a movie about police brutality in the Black community. And I think that book got banned for being woke or being, what's it called? Being associated with critical race theory and all of that. And it's like, guys, I hear you, but like, I feel like, and this will be an episode for another time, I promise y'all. I feel like woke has just become a term for anything that Republicans don't like. We're going to do an episode on what woke means, because I think Nathan and I will have differing opinions and more. It'll be a fun episode about it. But, I think we have to be very careful about what books we're banning, right? And I think what people don't understand is that the far right and the far left are a lot closer in ideology than you would think, right? When you get to the very extremes of both sides, you get book bans, you get, infringements on your speech. You get people that want to control the indoctrination centers that schools have become. And that's really what the argument is about these days, right? They're taking critical race theory out of elementary schools where it's not being taught anyway, right? They're taking that out so that they can control the narrative. I mean, you have, and I saw this on social media, probably like the rest of you did. You have, some of these resources that are coming out saying that slavery wasn't that bad, or slavery taught Black people some critical life skills that help them in life. You know what I mean? Like, I think we have to find a middle ground. We have to teach history for what it is. And I don't think it's woke to say that America did some bad things in history and teach kids about those bad things so that we don't repeat those mistakes moving forward. That's the whole point of learning history. You got to learn from the mistakes that your ancestors made, right? Like when I look at my ancestors, half of them sold the other half of them to the white man. You know what I mean? Like that happened. That's a reality. Let's learn from that. Let's not do those type of things. Let's advance as a society. And, I get it. We want to control the indoctrination centers, but I think we should be more focused on teaching kids how to think as opposed to teaching them what to think.
Oh, absolutely. And, first of all, I think I got to get a tan because none of them virtual backgrounds were working. It was driving me nuts. But, everything you were just saying about, the quote critical race theory and whatnot, right? The things that you're saying we need to learn from. You and I have talked about this. Like, I've always been very confused as to why people are saying we need to learn that, because I learned it in school. I learned all of that in school, but then like we've talked about, that's really going to be a geography type thing. Like growing up in Southern California, especially in the 90s, I thought my education was great. Now, granted, it was like half public, half private, and I will say there was a difference in the education level, public versus private. But I don't diminish anything from the public education that I got, at least in California. Granted, it was a while back. We certainly weren't banning any books, right? But so when I hear things like critical race theory and everything, my instinct is to be like, what are we not doing this? Why are we pushing it further? And through just talking to you and doing having these conversations and looking to do this podcast, like I've learned, no, I just kind of grew up in a cool area,
Yeah.
But
I mean, listen, we learned about slavery, but we didn't learn about slavery, right? Like in my high school, African American Studies was its own like elective, and there was a wait list to get into that class because
really?
I went to a school that was like 90% black, but like we all wanted to take that class because we weren't getting, the rich history and the rich, culture that our ancestors have created in this country after losing what they had back in Africa. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's interesting sometimes when you have these conversations with some of the parents that are concerned about their children, especially if they're, white. They're concerned about their kids feeling bad about being white and being made to feel bad for being white. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't think anybody ever thought about that when I was in class looking at the torn up back of a slave saying that we were basically chattel here in this country that told us that we were all equal. So I think that there has to be equal consideration to both sides of this argument, or it's not even an argument, both sides of the history, right? Like whether you I don't think anybody supports slavery. I would be hard pressed to find somebody that thought slavery was a good thing. You know what I mean? But as we're teaching our children, I think it's important that they know. Like my sons, I got two black sons, right? Like I need to teach them the history of their country. I need to teach them what to look out for. When we have all of this segregationist stuff moving about the country right now, I have to teach them what happened before, and what are the risks? What could happen if we don't know these things? You know what I mean? In the division, I don't think that we need to teach history as a divisive thing, right? I don't think anybody needs to feel bad for what people that they never knew did. But I do think it's interesting, and I do think it's important that we know our history so that we can look out for the signs and symptoms of things to come, right? Because history repeats itself. Right, there's nothing new. Nothing new under the sun. Every society that has ever existed has gone through cyclical periods. Right, you have this pendulum that always swings. You go from conservative to liberal to conservative to liberal. You do things in each cycle that are repeats of history, and I think you have to be careful. And I think you have to teach history for what it is, and not feel bad if you're associated with a group that maybe didn't do the best stuff. Right, like we don't care about what the Native American kids think when we talk about the Trail of Tears. We don't care if they feel bad that their ancestors went through that. But we're having a public debate and a public argument about making white kids feel bad for what? Not like most of their parents and grandparents didn't own slaves. This is what happened.
At this point, none.
Yeah, what I'm saying, like most of their families didn't own any slaves. If you look at the vast majority of white folks. It's listen to the viewer, and we're gonna get off this subject in a second, but to the viewer, race, political ideology are distractions, right? The only real fight in this country is rich and poor. Okay, it's the haves and the have-nots. Okay, you are way closer to your nearest Republican or Democrat neighbor than you would ever imagine, and they being the powers that be, right? The media, the political class, they use these things to divide us, and they do it purposefully. They divide us on these things that are really topical, if you will, right? It's surface level stuff. It's not stuff that means anything. They divide us on these things to keep us distracted from what actually happens in this nation, which is we have a ruling class of very rich people and corporations that buy Congress, and they keep us angry and divided and stupid, worrying about things that really don't matter whilst they rape us, right? They charge us all these taxes. They don't pay taxes. They're living off us. There's corporate welfare everywhere. Every time a bank fails, we bail them out. Every time a big corporation fails, we bail them out. They don't bail us out. We have some of the higher bankruptcy rates in the world, especially when it's considering like medical stuff, right? So just like think about those things. It's not about political ideology. Stop making your neighbor that votes differently than you your enemy. He's not. They're not. Okay? It's that rich dude that you've never heard of that's buying your local politician to vote in his favor on everything. Those are the people that you need to watch out for.
And just to kind of sign off here, and to echo your sentiments and paraphrase Dave Smith, us fighting over these culture war things, us fighting over race, us fighting over abortion, us fighting over anything cultural, it doesn't scare the Federal Reserve. It doesn't scare the CIA. They would rather us fight about this stuff than, like you said, banking, than
to start pulling out the pitchforks.
Yeah, they would much rather us fight about cultural things than to recognize that, our freedom of choice is very quickly, and one could argue has already become the illusion of choice.
Yep, I would agree 100%. Stay woke, y'all. Stay woke, okay? All right, well, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. I think the debate was a lot of fun. Nathan and I had a lot of fun watching it together. It's a good debate. I think you got to give the tally in the win column to your boy Ron DeSantis on this one. Good luck to him in the rest of his campaign. We'll see how he matches up with the rest of the Republican field, because I think there's another debate this week. And I hope he brings that same energy to that debate stage as he did to this stage. Our assessment is that Gavin Newsom's probably not running for president. He's probably running interference, and he's probably more of a distraction by the left to get eyes off of Joe.
Let me bring this up. Real quick before we sign off, because Newsom had a great line. Great line. Speaking of comparing people to Trump, okay? So Newsom said, and I'm going to try and get it as verbatim as possible, but Newsom said, Ron and I have one thing in common.
Yeah.
Neither of us are going to be the candidate for our party in 2024. That was an moment if there ever was one.
It was good.
And
it was
and
good.
when he said that, and he said that in the way he did, he actually said the first thing that I believed him on. I said, okay, I believe that. I believe he's not going to be running, but it is quite obvious at this point that he is being rolled out to do damage control and PR for the Democrat Party. I think promises might have been made for next go around, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, and so just they're bringing that guy out, they're wheeling that guy out. But I just thought that was a great line. I gave that line to Newsom all day long.
Check. He's smooth. That boy's slick.
Smooth.
That boy is slick now. Okay,
like oil.
Boy, he is smooth. He's handsome. He's everything that, for some reason, like Americans want their president to be. They want their president to be handsome and charming.
And with the hair.
And his hair is great. I mean, his hair is great. I mean, it's heavily gelled, let's be honest, or pomaded or whatever. But he looks damn good, and he speaks well. He looks like what you would think a president should look like. You know what I mean? Like he gives off presidential vibes. He doesn't answer questions very thoroughly, and that's a presidential thing to do, I would imagine. It's one of the things that got President Trump in trouble. Like, why do you keep calling it the Wuhan virus? Because it's from China. Okay, it's from China. So it was a great debate. But again, y'all, please take the time to watch the debate for yourselves when it finally does make its way to YouTube. Take the time to form your own opinion, hear what the candidates have to say, and move forward. But that's all we have for this episode. So until next time, I'm Kelvin. He's Nathan. This is the Common Sense Core, and we're really just trying to figure it all out together.
Peace.
All right, y'all.